A completely black frame with no visible content or distinguishable features.
10 and many voices. And for our programming this hour, we're going to hear from William Bigday. And William Bigday is an artisan from Crow Country. We have a really special treat here. He works with oil paints, watercolor, acrylics, and earth paints, and he kind of specializes in producing war shields. So we're going to learn a little bit about that and see some of the artwork here. He has also been an art teacher. He's an art teacher for 6 years. He taught grades K through 12. And so if you've worked with kids, you know how challenging and fun that must have been for William Bigday. So please help me welcome William Bigday, artisan from Crow Country. To
A person wearing a tan hat and gray shirt stands on a small stage holding a microphone. Behind them is a dark backdrop with white text listing federal agencies and organizations.
the 10 and many voices.
Hello. Welcome to, they call this place Wale Chialolobua. That's what my grandfather would always tell me. This is a place where the Apolloni hair tie. The Wale Chialolobua. This is the place where the river crows used to be camping here in these high ridges. These high ridges. And so the old people and my grandfather, they would always talk about this place where it was something that was the Creator had given them, the hair tie that was given to them. And this is where the place they call the Wale Chialolobua. And today, I'm very excited here, and I'm very honored here. So as we go on, I do a lot of research. When I was working on my undergraduate studies, I was doing Crow art history because there was very little. But my grandfather would always share stories with me in the Crow language. And before, when I was younger, I never had the opportunity of speaking in this second language, because this second language was another communication skill for me. So that way it took a long time, but when I went over to college world, I happened to start learning a new different set of language in a communication skill, you call it. So here I am with challenging my new language, learning my new language, and wanting to be an art major. And as I was doing that, it took me a while to communicate in this language. But later on, down as I keep going, going to school and, start practicing my language. And finally, I was able to communicate in that language. But many times I was in a library, so many times the librarian usually worries me because he would ask me why am I staying in there too late. But the library was my #1 resource, because whatever research I do, that's where that library was. It was always a supportive area for me, because I was happened to receive many more materials to learn about. And as I was doing that, I was happened to started listening to my grandfather's recording, because my grandfather used to have a reel-to-rear recording. Because my grandfather, he was born in during the 1800s, him and my grandma, because my grandma.
A person in a light green shirt holds a microphone while standing on a stage. Behind them is a large banner displaying text about various U.S. government agencies and departments. A fire extinguisher is visible at the stage's edge.
My grandfather, he was born in a town called Bridger and Fromberg, because General Pryor wanted to move everybody to that Pryor town. That General Pryor, he's the one that wanted to move everyone, because when the Absaroka, when that first treaty, that fort in Absaroka, they wanted to move everyone to Pryor. So my grandfather was born during that period. And then not too long, his younger brother, Henry Bigday, he was born here at the first agency too. And they call him the one that born with the White Cavalry, they say. But that was his teasing name. But he was born there. And so my grandfather had all these stories that he always shared with us, but it was in a Crow language. because after I mastered in my second language, it took me a while to translate that language into my language in the Crow language. And it took me a while, but after I started visiting with the BLM people, National Forest, and all those different other forestry people, so that way I can able to see all these rock art and rock pictograph drawings and paintings. That's what my main thing was. So what I did was I started doing all these research in these different areas. So for an example, here's a map from the Yellowstone Mountain, the Yellowstone Park, all the way to the Missouri. See, what happened was the Crow people were people of migrating people during summertime, during springtime. They would always migrate to places. And so this is one of the areas, they call it Binezapela. This is where the Binezapele was, because every year there was a flood that comes in. So that's why they always have that, they always camp on a high site, they said. So that's why they call it the Binezapele here. And then the name that, after years down the road, then the name of that, the headband, the abalone headband was found here, they say. But during those times, so when I was studying that, in those areas, so I started going through all this area to locate the pictograph and pictograph drawings, because when I became an art teacher for kindergarten and 12th graders, I was talking about the Crow art history, because they wanted to know more, because the only artists they know was Rembrandt and Donatello, Leonardo. You know, those are all Europeans. I said, no.
A person in a light green short-sleeved shirt and dark blue pants stands on a small stage holding a microphone. Behind them is a backdrop with text listing various government agencies. A potted plant and fire extinguisher are visible on the stage.
Oh, you know, you need to, understand the native art people, where it come from here, in the United States. So what I did was during my lectures, during my teaching, what I do is I test them with the Native American artists here, or the areas where they've been learning about, because the environment of this art history was part of their gift. And finally, during my first my second year, finally everyone started to realizing what I was trying to communicate with that classroom. So what I did was I started making war shields, because these war shields were made out of the elk, and so this elk rawhide was part of the war shield. And so what I did was I started working with my students about how the Crow style of making these war shields. So these war shields were simply cut the hide and shaved the hair and let it dry for so many days until they're like hard as an iron. And so what happened was that was simply that. And then all my students were like, not realizing what was the significance of this symbol. And it was a significance of this symbol was the significance of protection. And that was part of their guidance, because the Creator, what he did was gave them knowledge, gave them spiritual guidance. And so that's why they have these war shields during those days, during those times. So when I started doing that, I started getting into it. So that's when I started bringing out my studies of rock art, the petroglyph and pictograph drawings. And so what I did was I started combining with my artwork and studying the rock art. So any kind of a art rock during that time, for 200, 500 thousands of years ago, my ancestors, what they did was it was part about their art history. During that time, when they were studying about these rock art, it was part about their symbol, the symbol of bravery, the symbol of guidance. You know, it was part that they protect themselves with. And as they were using these rock art,
A person in a green shirt and blue pants stands at a microphone on a small stage. Behind them is a banner listing various government agencies. A potted plant sits on the stage to the left.
it was part about the significance of their symbol. So when I was sharing my students with these war shields, and it started happening for them, and it was working for them. And what happened was, after they started realizing what they have in these areas, so what I do is I start making lectures on these pictograph drawings, because it's been quite a few years when I was studying about these pictograph drawings, because there were so many areas in these where the Crow people were migrating, and where the summer migrating, and or during the buffalo hunting or elk season, you know, during those days, that's what they've been studying about. But that's according to my language, because after we become bilingual, we were able to talk about these areas where it was part about their religion, I guess, for them. It was a religion for them. It was something that they respect. And then so what I did was I started combining these rock art into my paintings. And it was part about my studies, putting it together. This one, it's called this one, the abstract one. Some of my students were able to see the differences, and we were doing our comparison. So I was sharing them. This comes from a rock art and a song when during a time when the river crows and center lodge people, mountain crows, they were all getting together in a town called Billings. They were getting together in Billings, and this one elder started singing. He said, you know, you're coming to a place where the Creator has given you this song. He said the white weasel is going to sing his song. And so as he was singing his song, and this is part about the painting, and so that's where I started doing that with my students. And that was something for my students, you know, it was very exciting for them. This one, I call it my red bear. During the time when the mountain crows were up in there was a small town called Wapiti, the east entrance of Yellowstone Park. Up on that high mountain on the top, they camped there. They said there was 100.
A person in a green short-sleeved shirt and blue pants stands on a small stage holding a microphone. Behind them is a banner listing various U.S. government agencies and departments. A potted plant is visible to the left.
100 teepees there. The mountain crows, you know, they were appreciating the gift during that early in the spring. So what happened was, in those days, when they were up on that ridge, the highest ridge, and so the old people, they were giving thanks to the Creator. And one gentleman from the river crow here went over to the mountain crows because he was married to a mountain crow woman. And they said, hey, your brother-in-law, he's coming over here to the high mountains. So he said he's seen a boat. And everyone was, a boat? You know, in our language, he says, Bamasha. It's a wooden thing. It's got cloth on there. He said, whatever it is, he said that wooden cloth, that wooden boat and that cloth, every time when that wind changes, it picks it up and moves down that river. He said, us river crows, we see a wooden thing that's floating in that river, he said. he was all shocked. And the people, the mountain crows, they said, wow, did you see what it's in there? And he said, yeah. He said, I seen some good horses. You know, us crows, we like good horses. So, you know, the first thing he seen, he wasn't paying attention to the people, but he was paying attention to the thoroughbred come from England. And they realized the Queen of England gave some horses to Lewis and Clark. They have good horses. So the crows, they said, hey, yeah, that's good then, you know. But they didn't see those people in a boat, because when they went back to when the elders were talking, he said, maybe we could go and see more. He said, every morning, just soon as sunrise comes up, there was a lady, jumps in the river, swims back down, he goes back home. But they didn't know who it was, but the crow people, they said, they thought it was a frog lady, Sacagawea. You know, they thought she was a frog lady because every morning she'll jump in the river and swims back down. And they said, that guy, whoever that person is, you know, every morning she jumps in that creek, swims off. I don't know why. So this crow guy, this river crow guy, he said, yeah, come on, you guys, let's go and see what's going on more. So these mountain crows, you know, they said, wow, this coming fall, we're going to need some good-sized elk, so we might use those horses. Good. So this boat, same thing again, towards evening, they were all up on this high ridge.
A person in a green shirt and blue pants stands on a small stage holding a microphone. Behind them is a dark podium and a banner displaying text about various U.S. government agencies and departments.
This high ridge out here, the high ridge, they were all sneaking up and in that boat again. And then they were waiting. They said, let's wait. And when that morning star comes up, we'll unload all those horses. Yeah. So Lewis and Clark and his other buddies, you know, all his people, they got off from that boat. I guess they were doing expedition areas in this area. So these crow guys, mountain crows, they come over and they all waiting for that morning star. As soon as that morning star showed up, they all went in that water here. They call it Ijirigashaja. That's Yellowstone River. You know, we call it the Elk River. The mountain crows, they said, the Elk River, we're going to go in there and get closer. So they did. Boy, these nice-looking horses. Boy, you know, they were tall horses. And so they unload them, all those horses from the boat. And they brought it to the land. And they said, you want to camp here, they said, in this flat area. They said, no. The river crow guy, he said, no, get him out of here. Take him to the mountains, you know. And so they took all the horses. They're good horses, you know, the thoroughbreds, I guess, during those days. But they said they were tall horses. And they were the best ones, they said, when they were doing their buffalo season. You know, that's what they used, because they took them all home. And then as soon as the sunrise, they said all these little bitty wooden things coming out, and they were yowling. And here they were yowling, who are the horse thief? Who's the horse thief? You know. But we were the ones. I guess after 200 years later, I confess, you know. That was a good concoup, you know. But the crow people, you know, we say that was a concoup. That was a good concoup, because it was all different when that boat had canvas like this, you know. And they said it's got something on there. Every time that wind comes in, you know, then that wooden thing start floating around. And it was pretty amazing to them. And so during those days, you know, in this area, when they were on those high ridges, they would always pay attention. And as during those days, you know, when I was doing my studies in those areas, there was an old guy named Sue Connors. He's about 80, 90 years old. He's an archaeologist in these areas back in 1950s, during the 40s. Sue Connors and Lorndorf, those two guys, you know, they're about 80, 90 years old. They used to do a lot of expedition here. So I was pretty lucky.
A person in a green shirt and blue pants stands on a small stage holding a microphone. Behind them is a black backdrop with white text listing various government agencies and departments.
That time I met up with that Sue Connors, and I asked him about that. I said, hey, my grandfather had stories like this. And so him and I were comparing stories, because that time I was in University of Wyoming. I was doing my Masters of Fine Arts out there. So as I was, doing those studies, because usually every year the archaeologists, they have a big gathering there. And so that's when I happened to be in that right moment to be a part of that. And it was good. So as I was doing my studies on these rock art, then I started putting into these abstract forms the essence of that art from that art rock, the rock art. So what I did was I started paying attention to more of that rock art. But what happened was the reason why Lewis and Clark got involved in my studies, all these archaeologists and all these scientologists, they had studied in those areas because they had evidence in that Pompeii's pillar. But we call it the Ispiamaja Alakaba. This Ispiamaja Alakaba, that wooden boat was there, they said. I don't know what he's doing, they said, but he, for some reason, see, those days, it has to be a shaman or somebody important that carves the wall. And they said, this guy, he carved the wall. He had no cigarette, he didn't talk to the creator, but he went ahead and carved it. Why is he doing that, they said. The Crow people, that's what they said. But that's why during my studies, that's what I run into. And it was very important. But the old people, during those days, it was something new discovery. It was something new expression when he got off from that boat. And, he had all these soldiers. And as he was doing that, and then so what I did was I started working with these colors. And what I did was I started adding symbols of these animals, the animals of what we believed in back home. And a lot of times my parents are still very traditional people. And sometimes when I come over to visit this area, I tell them, us river crows, I come to visit the river crows here, So I come over here and visit people here, I say. And they laugh because, they consider themselves as a Center Lodge people now, And what
A person in a green short-sleeved shirt and blue pants stands at a podium holding a microphone on a small stage. Behind them is a large banner listing various government agencies and departments.
What I did was I started working with that. And then these paintings that I've done, it was part about the expression, the expression of abstract. I guess according to the Europeans, they call it the abstract expression artwork, they call it. Whatever that comes from the heart or the mind. Like Picasso, a lot of the Revolution War he does. He expressed himself on those paintings. It was more detail. But for here, in this America, we do the abstract, the symbolism of our religion. And here are one of the studies. A lot of the crows, when they were studying about their symbols of the pictograph or the plectograph drawings, it was part about during Sundays when you go to church, the person opens up a Bible and he prays about whatever it's in a Bible. It was written. So that's why they call it the Bible. It was written from the new religion, new testimony. All those were written during those times. So the Crow people, this is our Old Testament. This is our religion. This is our art religion. And so as they do that, there were symbols of the bravery. The bravery is pulling a gift back home. And then this is called the shaman. The shaman is looking over the man while he's pulling a gift to home. It was a gift. And then the great buffalo, the buffalo society. Well, one time, my dad and my client uncle, back home, we still have our client uncles, they say, kingship, they call it. My kindlings, my little niece, nephews, I have some uncles back home. I asked them, I said, what do you mean, by that symbol? It was meaning of a wise man during those times. And it was a gift. It was a gift from the Creator, he said. So what they do is they symbolize themselves in those great way. And that's how they share with me, my uncles, client uncles.
A person in a green shirt stands at a microphone on a stage. Behind them is a banner listing various U.S. government agencies. A potted plant sits on the stage to the left.
And they say this society was all breaking down, during a time when maybe you heard it before, the Crow people, happened to all died off when the smallpox got to us during the time of during the 1800s. Many of them, there used to be during that period, during the 1800 periods, we were pretty close to 15 to 20,000 of Crow Indians because of this, the river crows, the center lodge people, mountain crows, the black lodge, all the way to the borderline of Colorado. We were all there, the black lodge people were there. And they said one time we had this smallpox and we all died off, they said. And so what happened was the very number one thing was the rock art. The rock art was very important for the old people because that was part about their belief. That was their healing of art. And so what happened was, as they were moving along, the great shaman talking to the assistant shaman, that was the symbol of his communication in that way, of that spiritual way. And as they were moving on, the great man, that the eternity, that circle, the eternity of life of a human man, he said, I come to give you that gift because I'm a healer, he says. I guess medicine doctor, like you go to the clinic, like you go to dentist or the different kind of surgeon, like you have a cold and you go to this doctor and you go to him and he'll say, I'm a doctor. I can find whatever either the head cold or sore throat or something, But those days, the Crow people, that's how they symbol themselves. That's how they draw themselves. And he said, I'm a great man of a good healing, he said. So that's why the eternity of life. But if Donatello or Leonardo, they'll put halo. They put halo on that. But Crow Indians, this is how they represent themselves as this symbol, this great circle of eternity life. This one, I call it my grandmother's dream. It's on an oil paint. It's 6 feet by 5 feet long. When I was an undergraduate, my art history teacher, he tells me, he said, Mr. Big Day, you got to do a research on Crow Indian art because of that oil paint. This class I took, it's called
A person in a green shirt and blue pants stands on a small stage holding a microphone. Behind them is a banner listing various government agencies and organizations. A potted plant sits to the left.
Lecture and research, they call it this. It's a beginning class. And so I went over to Mussel Shell, Milestone, the Blue Mountain, they call it. when I went over to the BLM and I visited with them. I said, I like to do some studies here. So I went out there, and during the time when the first smallpox came to the Crow people, the first thing what it got was the children. The children were all dying off. And so what they did, grandmother went up to the high mountains, to the high hills, the Boo Mountain. He went up there, all to these high places and asking for a good healing for his children. And this new upcoming sickness, they don't know how to get rid of that new sickness, they said. And so all this rock art, it's about 20 feet across, 20 feet down. And all this hand painting was there, all in a small baby hands, in red paint. In red paint. And so I come home, I brought that home. I shared it with my people first. I talked to my dad. I talked to my clan. I said, why is that? And so they explained it in the Crow language, that what I was speaking in English. And so what they did was, he said, all the grandmothers were worried during that time. So it was part about their healing of that rock art. This one is called Going to Parade. It's on watercolor. So a lot of times, many areas that so this the significance of a woman, like the queen, when he described herself, she has all these diamonds, and she's got this diamond wand, and she's all pretty with pretty dress. So on those rock art, what happened was the Crow women, this is how they draw themselves in the rock art when they're doing petrograph or petroglyph drawings. That's how the Crow woman described themselves. There was an area way back in, there's a small town called Powell, Wyoming. In that area, there was a Crow woman described herself in a rock art like this. And then this one is called my charging bull. So charging bull, in my painting, this is a 6 feet by 4 feet painting, oil painting. And charging bull.
A person in a green shirt and blue pants stands on a small stage holding a microphone. Behind them is a large banner with text listing various government agencies and departments. A potted plant is visible on the stage.
What I did was I compare my painting, my oil painting, in that way of that formation of the style, that contour style, back to the Europeans, back to Picasso and Leonardo, Donatello. The drawings were contour drawings, fulfilling the colors. But according to Picasso's study, he said the native had to contour before time, he says, before his time, during the time of their study. And then Leonardo, Donatello, that's what they were all saying. He said the native people were the one to bring the contour concept. And so that was just about in the European art lectures, during those days. But according to the Crow people, this style comes from the rock art. There was no impressionistic or new age style. It's not like that, but it was something that's all original because it's inside of us. So every time when I'm doing some work, either it'll turn out to be very abstract or very colorful with the paintings. And so many times I've argued with my instructor. They're expecting a Crow guy to do a detail work. It's not inside me, but I'm learning. But that's part of the tradition art that we go through. This one is called The Couple Going Home. This one is out in Helena. Because in Helena, I did a lot of research there too. Because during that time, my grandfather, he said the what do they call it? The continental divide. The continental divide, in those areas, they call it among the mountain. Among the mountain. And all the newlywed, I guess, that's where they go honeymoon. but the new, they say couples during that time, they ride through there because it was a gift. So that way, when they turn back and they look at over here to the river cross, they look over here and they say, yes, thank you. They say, among the mountain, thank you. But that's one of them. This is another 6 feet by 5 feet oil painting too. This one I call it the bispiritual. This is a lithograph. Yeah, a lithograph they call it. It's unlimited, and what I did was I started working on it, and so my instructor.
A person in a green shirt and blue pants holds a microphone while standing on a stage. Behind them is a black podium and a large banner with text listing various government agencies and departments.
When I was an undergraduate at MSU Billings, I was an undergraduate, so I asked my instructor, I said, why, how can I express myself? So we were doing compare, contrast, and so he came up with this man named, a guy from Butte. He was an artist. He was an abstract expressionist. Him and Picasso met together because he was from Butte, right? So he wanted to learn about abstract expressionists. So this Montana artist met with Picasso, and both were arguing about this abstract expressionist. So, can you imagine about me too, this 25th century, arguing with an instructor, me trying to be somebody that I was, I'm already here. And so what I did was I started creating this, comparing with my rock art again. This, I call it my bispiritual. This is when they say, the old people, they say when a man is in a battle, or when a man is serious with his preparedness, he turns into half animal and half man. So that way he has good home or bring back good things. And so that's what they call a bispiritual. Same thing with this one. What I did was I ran into this rock art, this pictograph drawing. What happened was, see, usually us Crow people, we are very, very respectful. What we did was we make offering. We make offering to this land and to this air, to the skies, and to this mountain. And what it did, talks about this man, the creator came from his soul. And as he came out from there, he started helping him with his enemies and how powerful himself, how he described himself. And here's another one. They call it, I guess the Europeans, they call it the deity, the great shaman. I don't know that, but the people, they call that the great shaman. So he described himself with the younger people. And as the younger people, or I should say the little people, he talked to them. He said, I am the master of you, And so as he was doing that, this is how he described himself in that symbol. And here's more. During a time when warriors were out hunting, maybe a lot of men.
A person in a green shirt and blue pants stands on a small stage holding a microphone. Behind them is a banner listing various government agencies. A potted plant sits on the stage to the left.
When you go elk hunting or deer hunting or antelope hunting or gone fishing, you want to talk to your creator, Hey, creator, help me out with my hunting. But this is what it talks about. During his hunting season, he was out going elk hunting, and they gave him this dream where to go on this mountain. So this is how he receives his message. The medicine rabbit, the medicine rabbit was part about during those days when there was one time they said this land was all dry, no water, no flood, no plants growing. And they said, you know, the creator, he said to the shaman, he said, what have I got? You know, he said, I have nothing. And he said, the mountain, you people, you go to the mountain and you give thanks. Give thanks to this upcoming weather. So they went up there, and he said, you know, what do I feed my people? He said, the great rabbit is going to come to you. And it was part about our food areas too. And so this is how it was represented in his way of during the hunting time. The wolf. So if there's any questions or anything that, you know, you would like to ask, you know.
If you do have a question, please just raise your hand and we'll get a, okay, here we go. We'll get a microphone to you.
I'd like to ask what it is that inspires you to do such huge mural-sized paintings.
The reason why is the reason why I do these large paintings were freedom of expression. This freedom of expression, you express yourself. You know, to be a part of that painting. It comes from being a part of the rock art. During those days, they weren't bond, or they weren't. Yeah, they were freedom of their way of the style. And so that's where I got the influence in my studies. That's why.
We have another question here. Okay.
Where can you view these paintings, and are they for sale or what?
Yes, yes, they are for sale. Yes, yeah.
A person in a green shirt and blue pants stands on a stage holding a microphone, speaking. Behind them is a banner listing various government agencies including the U.S. Army, Department of Energy, and Bureau of Land Management.
Well, yeah, very good prices, yes. Come on over to this building, yeah. How? Well, yeah. Yes, they are, yes. See, what I did was, many times I taught in a summer school in a Pima tribe. I went to the Pima school in state of Arizona because they needed some Native American Indians to give art lectures out there as a Crow Indian, and they wanted to listen to the way how we express our artwork, and so that's why I was happened to have that opportunity to go over there to share with here in the state of Montana of how we express ourselves in the art world.
Okay, see, yeah, hold on.
Where are the actual paintings then? Where are the actual paintings?
Oh, the actual paintings? Yeah, I got some in this building, and then the other one I got some at University of Billings, Montana. At that university, they have a 7 feet by 7 feet oil paint there, and then the others were in permanent areas were in state of Arizona. Yeah, and then some in Washington D.C. So they're all in 7 feet by 7 feet.
Okay, we'll do one more.
Could you tell us more about your beautiful horse brooch, your pin?
Oh yes, yes. Like earlier I was sharing with the symbol of the significance of who I am or what I do. I become part of the horse society. Because during those days, I just confessed earlier about stealing Lewis and Clark's thoroughbreds. You know, my ancestors were one of them. So that's why I have this significance of this horse. But I got some more horses. For sale, yes.
Well,
Thank you.
yeah, I think unfortunately we're about out of time, but let's give William Big Day a big round of applause for that program. I think we all know just a little bit more about Crow art history thanks to your efforts. And of course, if you do want to talk with William more and see some of these works, I think it's the home show building that you're set up in. So kind of make your way over there, and then you can get a look up close and personal at these fine pieces of art. And just some other things to let you know, we have about 15 minutes to our next program is going to begin. And in a rare kind of event, it's not going to be in the tent. It's going to be kind of straight behind me to the left of the teepee. We're going to have...
A person in a green shirt and blue pants stands at a microphone on the stage. Behind them is a large banner listing various government agencies. A potted plant sits on the stage to the left.
Mr. Garrett's in there with Stone Age Technologies, so you're welcome to join him. His program's going to last a little bit longer than the programs in here. It'll be about an hour and 15 minutes, and it's quite a performance along with many hands-on things, many props. So you're welcome to join Mr. Garrettson with Stone Age Technologies almost right under the tree to the left of the teepee. Because that program does run over, I also want to let you know about our 6 o'clock program. It's still going to happen in here. And so if you were wanting to follow the trail of Lewis and Clark plants with Ranger Mary Ellen Ergel, she will be in here at 6 o'clock and start that program. So unfortunately, I have to leave it up to you as to where you want to be, because being in 2 places at the same time is really tough. But that's what's going to go on. And of course, please enjoy everything else around us. We have lots of food vendors. We have lots of artisans with items for sale. We have lots of little exhibits around here to explore. Take advantage of it all. And like I said, if you want to see William Big Day, talk to him a little bit in person, see his artwork firsthand, make your way to the home show building. So thank you once again for being a great audience. And